Hey there folks, this is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop, and episode 3 of Ahsoka, titled Time to Fly, has dropped on Disney+. Beware, this review contains spoilers. The first episode of the show I thought was a solid pilot. The second episode was a bit contrived, but they both laid out a great foundation for the series. Although after this latest episode, all that groundwork has yet to be built on in any significant way. I gotta be completely honest, there's not a whole lot I liked about Part 3. I can't say that there was anything that I downright hated, but it just didn't do very much to move the story forward. And the thing is, usually when I think that of a single episode of a Star Wars show, it's because it branches out into a side quest that has little or no effect on the season's overarching story. An example, in my opinion, was The Prisoner, the 6th episode of Mandalorian Season 1, which I know a lot of fans really like, but it didn't do very much for me. Though eventually, I did have to say that it was completely worth it because that episode introduced us to Mayfeld, and without him, we wouldn't have gotten to the utterly fantastic episode that was The Believer, the penultimate of Season 2. Now, Part 3 of Ahsoka never gets sidetracked in the way I described. It still sticks with the story and characters that were set up previously. It's just that it doesn't cover ground very quickly. About the only accomplishments it makes are Ahsoka and Sabine finding out about the gigantic booster ring that Elsbeth's crew are constructing for traveling to the distant galaxy, and the discovery that the path to this galaxy aligns with the migration patterns of the star whales they come across, the very species that were strangling Thrawn with their tentacles right before he and Ezra blasted off into the unknown. It's not much, even for the 29 minutes that the episode runs for, excluding the recap and the credits, and it gives me the feeling that there are important elements to the show that could have been condensed with either previous or following episodes, and we'd have a 6-part series instead of 8. The first half of Part 3 consists mostly of Sabine's training, with Ahsoka instructing her to fight with the helmet visor in front of her eyes, much like Obi-Wan did with Luke. Unless this is a misdirection that's building up some poignant conclusion for the character, it's obvious at this point that Sabine is indeed on a path to becoming a full-fledged Force user. We see her attempt to use the Force on a cup to no avail, which undoubtedly is foreshadowing a high-stakes moment later in the series when she uses the Force successfully. As I mentioned before, I'm not dead set against Sabine becoming a Force user, but as it stands now, I don't find it particularly necessary. But I will give it till the end of the series to see what's done with it. I don't know if this was something that Dave Filoni has been planning ever since Rebels. I just hope it pays off in a big or meaningful way. Baylan Skoll, who has been the most interesting part of the show so far, he only shows up in the last 10 seconds to give the order to hunt down Ahsoka after she and Sabine landed on the planet Cetos. A cliffhanger that I'm confident is going to amount to a better 4th episode. For one, because now Baylan has reached the point that he's dreaded having to kill Ahsoka, and because it appears to be the location of that duel between Sabine and Marek that much of the marketing has teased us with, probably meaning it's going to be a pivotal sequence. Something I have to mention too, I'm not entirely sure how this would add up, why it is that Ezra would go back to his galaxy while Admiral Thrawn stays out in the middle of who knows where. So I could very well be wrong here, but I'm just getting the suspicion that Ezra might be the mysterious Inquisitor working with Baylan Skoll. I mean, Ezra did wrestle with the dark side a few times in Rebels. It's not a stretch to say that 12 years of absence is more than ample opportunity for him to make the full 180. Although whether or not it is Ezra, the question currently remains, why is Baylan Skoll working with a Sith Inquisitor when he's shown himself to still have some attachment to the Jedi? That's another thing that needs explaining before the show is over. Among the little things that I enjoyed in this episode, there was the visual of Ahsoka going outside of the ship in that spacesuit and flipping in zero gravity to take out the enemy fighters with their lightsabers. No doubt that was the coolest looking part of the episode, but when you really think about it, why did they have to focus all of their laser fire on Ahsoka just because she was outside of the ship? I mean, they could have just continued firing at the ship, and Ahsoka would get blown to tangerines anyway. If there's anything else worth mentioning that I liked, Huyang, the droid voiced by David Tennant. A fun character for his honesty that is literally and figuratively mechanical, like straight up telling Sabine that she's the worst candidate for Jedi that's ever been. He's no K2SO, but I like him enough. Overall, Part 3 I felt dragged the story to a crawl that moves slower than a Star Wars crawl. It's by no means awful, just uneventful. My plan has been to hold off on watching Andor until after Ahsoka is finished, just so I can focus on one of these shows at a time. But honestly, I felt like I got so little out of this latest episode that I'm kind of in the mood to start on Andor now. After the first 2 episodes, I rated Ahsoka a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Part 3 has brought my score down to a 6 out of 10. But I'm holding out hope that Part 4 is where things will get interesting again. In fact, I feel pretty good that it will be. And after all, it is the first of 5 episodes we still have left. That's a wrap, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this review, and be sure to let me know your thoughts on Part 3 of Ahsoka in the comments below. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop.